We have seen it all in the last 9 years of buying and selling stereo equipment, from people just getting into the hobby or even people my age and older that have seemed to have forgotten more than they remember. For those of us that remember the 70s and 80s, it was a really good time, so I get it. In this video, we're going to go over some of the biggest mistakes we see almost every single day, and I got a couple standout stories for a few of these. It's going to be a lot of fun. Here we go. Let's get into it. This video is brought to you by skylabsaudio.com. Recently, we just added several models of Rega turntables and phono cartridges to the store. And no question, the Rega P3 RS is becoming one of my favorite brand new turntables, period. Stop in for a listen or grab one at skylabsaudio.com. We do appreciate you supporting this channel and our small business here in West Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you. And just to be very clear about this, I think I've made almost every single mistake on this list. There's nothing to be ashamed about. Definitely put down in the comments if you've made any of these mistakes. Help people out. It's amazing how many times I've heard the same one over the last 9 years. Somebody will stop in, there's something wrong with my amplifier or receiver. After running it for a little while or really kind of cranking it up, it shuts off. I hear this click and then no music. And the first question out of my mouth every time is, how many speakers are you running? And 90% of the time they will say 2 sets. Most likely one of those sets of speakers is 6 ohms or lower, and the amplifiers don't like that. Most amplifiers, especially from the 70s, are rated down to 4 ohms, and most of them say this in pretty big letters right on the back of the receiver. This is another one of those mistakes that's very easy to solve, either with a speaker selector that has protection in it. An even cheaper solution to this problem would be to run them in series. And if looking at a wiring diagram on how to run 2 sets of speakers in series really hurts your brain, I get it. Not bagging. Get the speaker selector with protection. Don't have to worry about it. This is how it goes. There's something wrong with my turntable. I think I need a new stylus. Lately, my turntable hasn't sounded that great. It's starting to sound muffled. And then here recently, I went to put on a record and my tone arm just slid across the record. And 9 times out of 10, they'll set that turntable up on the counter and there'll be a massive dust ball stuck to the end of that stylus. And I've seen this from younger kids all the way through people much older than I am. And this is why you might have heard me say, turntables and records aren't for everybody. It is a format that requires maintenance of your records, the turntable, the stylus, everything. I think you either enjoy that part of it or they're just not right for you. And it's no big deal either way, but it's definitely part of it. This is another one that is very easily solved with just cleaning your records and cleaning your stylus. The record care industry is booming. There are a lot of different choices for a stylus brush, record cleaners, ultrasonic cleaners,
shrimp soup, shrimp stew, shrimp salad,
pad and spray cleaners. And this is definitely more for the vintage receiver people out there, but you have no idea how many times we hear, I think there's something wrong with the FM. I can't get reception. And the first thing I ask is, do you have an antenna on it? And usually they will respond with, yeah, it's got the one that's built in right here. And I'm like, oh, that handlebar? And you have to say, that's the AM antenna. Again, this is one that's very easy to solve, even almost free. While your best option is probably to get a cheap dipole antenna, you can just use speaker wire. I've done it 100 times, and it's as simple as just getting about 6 inches of bare wire on the ends of the speaker wire. Spread the wire apart 6 feet, something like that. Drape it back behind your stereo, and then attaching it to your receiver. And you'll probably be pretty impressed at how good the reception is. But you do need an antenna most likely. And out of all the mistakes on this list, this is potentially the most expensive one. I actually just dealt with this not too long ago with a friend and a fellow record store owner that should know better. He's not new to the game. And not too long ago, he came in, he wanted a nice vintage receiver. I sold him a really nice Sansui 9090. And a few months later, I get a call and he says, I'm not getting any sound out of my stereo. Would you come over and take a look at it? No problem. So I go over to his house, I spin the 9090 around, and I'm not going to exaggerate here. There was probably 2 inches of copper wire exposed, and they touched, and he fried it. Not good. I was almost shocked because he's almost my age. He's been around stereo equipment his whole life. And he even said, well, that's just the way I've always done it. And I'm thinking, I can't believe this hasn't happened before. So don't do this. This is bad. You really only want the amount of copper that is going to be making the connection to the amplifier or receiver, nothing extra. And I would really encourage you to buy wire strippers. Even if they're not expensive, you don't want to use nail clippers and scissors. Bad idea. Getting a good, solid, clean connection with your speaker wires, I really don't think there's a more important aspect when you're setting up your stereo than that. And this one really kind of shocked me. This happened not too long ago. We get two kinds of customers. Something you have to do when you're selling stereo equipment is kind of navigate the customer, size them up a little bit. You don't want to offend them by asking a question that almost anybody that's been in the hobby for a decent amount of time would know. It's one thing if a customer comes and says, I'm brand new, give me the training wheels, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's great because we're happy to help. We'll walk you through the whole process. But sometimes you get somebody that doesn't want you to know how little they know. And not too long ago, I had this guy that was probably 65 years old, something like that. He wanted a turntable. And so I sold him a turntable. A few hours later, I get a text message with an image of a set of RCA cables. And he says, I can't hook these up to my speakers. And I had to ask him, you have an amplifier, right? And he said, no, I don't have an amplifier. Sometimes you just got to swallow your pride a little bit and ask, say, hey, I'm new to this. Yes, I'm 65 years old and I'm just getting into stereo equipment. Help me out. No big deal. I am the biggest fan of the Crosley Cruisers, the all-in-one, under $100 turntable record players, because they do a really good job of getting people into the hobby. Unfortunately, a lot of people end up buying twice, especially with records. I don't think the extremes with the other sources are as extreme, in that with a turntable going from a $100 turntable to like an $800 turntable, that's a big difference. There's a lot of sonic improvements there. I don't think there's quite as much when you're going from a $80 streamer or CD player to a $800 streamer or CD player. And that's just me. Turntables need to be so precise, so accurate, that jump from what essentially is almost kind of a toy, something for somebody in their early teens, to a really nice, well-made turntable, sonically that improvement is huge. So a lot of times with customers, I tend to explain it like this. If you're wanting to see if maybe vinyl records are right for you, you really need to invest in it a little bit. It's like wanting to get into photography and buying a cheap and expensive camera. Is that experience of trying photography going to be fun with a cheap camera? Are you even going to know what it's really like? You want to at least get a decent camera. Otherwise, you're not really experiencing it. And I think it's the same way with turntables. I don't think you have to spend a ton of money, but get something decent. For me, there's nothing worse than buying something twice when I should have just got something just a little bit nicer. This one happens all the time too. We'll have a customer come in with their turntable and they'll say, I have bought 2 or 3 stylists for this turntable and I can't find the right one. A lot of times they're just going off photos on the internet. They're trying to figure out if that's the right stylus for their turntable, or they're buying the stylus based on what the original cartridge was on that turntable. And there's a really simple trick to this. I bet over 90% of the time, if you take the 2 screws out of the head shell and you drop that cartridge down, you're going to see what model it is. And even better advice to you, you should just replace the cartridge. Most of the time, a replacement stylus is almost going to cost you as much as a new cartridge and stylus. So if your cartridge is over 20 years old, you might as well just get a new cartridge, a new stylus, change it up a little bit, try a different manufacturer. But trying to buy a replacement stylus just going off photos on the internet, most of the time that's probably not going to work for you. And if changing the cartridge is intimidating to you, depending on the turntable you have, if it's a standard collar mount, you could buy a pre-mounted cartridge. It's already got a brand new stylus in it. It's just a simple plug and play solution. Easy, easy. This might be the most common one on this list. Somebody will come in and they'll say, I bought a turntable. I can barely hear it. It sounds terrible. Or on the flip side, they'll say, I bought a turntable. It sounds horrible. It's really loud. It's really distorted. This is always a very simple fix. And it comes down to you need one phono preamp, and you can't have more than one phono preamp. A lot of times this is somebody that's buying a turntable to get into the hobby. They already have a receiver or a set of powered speakers, and they don't realize they need a phono preamp. There for a while, they stopped putting phono preamps inside of 2-channel stereo systems and AV receivers. It's really not that uncommon in the 2000s. This is not a huge problem. There are a lot of $20 to $100 phono preamps that will get the job done for you. They sound just fine, no matter what your budget is. On the flip side, because the turntable manufacturers realized that not a lot of stereo equipment in the 2000s were putting phono preamps in, they started putting the phono preamp into the turntable. So this is the other side of that, where somebody gets a turntable, they plug it into their phono preamp in their stereo, and the turntable phono preamp is in the on position, hence the really loud, distorted, bad sound. This is something when we sell a turntable with a phono preamp, we go over with the customer, but a lot of times people are just buying them online. They don't even realize there's a phono line switch on the back of the turntable, and there's the problem. Easy to fix. You just got to know. That's all. Oh man, this one hurts so bad. I think we hear this every single week at the shop. People will come in and they'll say, these records and stereos have value? We just sold ours off in a garage sale last year. You know, almost like, where have you been? You know, this stuff's been popular for 10 years or more. And most likely there was a Facebook post in a group of somebody just hitting a home run, talking about how they just picked up the stereo system and all these records and they got them for cheap. That's probably where they came from. If that was you, I'd just look at it like you got your value out of it. You made somebody else's day, because there is nothing better than going to a garage sale and seeing a stack or a pile of records with 4 for $1 on them, you know? That's a really good day. On the flip side, if you've been questioning whether or not those CDs down in your basement that are collecting dust and boxes, if you're on the fence about selling them, if you can hold off a year, maybe 2, I probably would. It does seem like the CD mania is really ramping up. If you haven't sold your CDs yet, hang on to them just a little bit. Who knows? Maybe you're sitting on a pot of gold. It happened with vinyl. It could happen with CDs. If you don't believe me, you should probably watch this video right here. I think CDs are coming back. I think it's a thing. Go watch it. It's fun.